Take a breath. Not a deep one if that feels like too much. Just a gentle breath in and out. You don't need to do anything else right now. You don't need to understand anything. You don't need to fix anything. If you're listening to this, there's a good chance something inside you feels uncertain. Maybe life feels confusing. Maybe you feel tired, overwhelmed, disconnected, or unsure of where you're headed. Maybe you can't even explain what's wrong. You just know that something doesn't feel right. That's okay. This audiobook exists for moments like this. Moments when the noise of the world feels too loud. Moments when expectations feel heavy. Moments when your mind keeps searching for answers it can't seem to find. This is not a place for pressure. This is not a place for judgment. This is not a place where you're expected to suddenly figure your life out. This is a safe place. Here you are allowed to slow down. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to simply be without explanations, without solutions, without pretending that everything is fine. You don't need answers right now. You don't need a plan. You don't need clarity. Sometimes, the most important thing you can do is stop running toward the next thing and allow yourself to rest exactly where you are. If your mind is racing, that's okay. If you feel emotional, numb, or distant, that's okay too. Nothing you're feeling is wrong. You're not listening to this because you're weak. You're listening because something inside you is asking for care, for understanding, for gentleness. And that matters. As you listen, let yourself settle into the sound of these words. Let them remind you that you're not alone in this moment. Many people, across different lives and different paths, have felt lost at some point, even if they never spoke about it. Feeling lost doesn't mean you failed. Often, it means you're growing, changing, or standing at the edge of something new, even if it doesn't feel that way yet. There is no rush here. You can listen with your eyes open or closed. You can listen closely, or let the words simply exist in the background. If your attention drifts, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to concentrate. Just being here is enough. This audiobook isn't something you need to finish in one sitting. You can return to it anytime, on quiet nights, early mornings, or moments when uncertainty returns. It will still be here for you. For now, let this be a small pause in your day, a moment where nothing is demanded of you, a moment where you don't have to be strong, productive, or certain. You're safe here. You're welcome here. And you're allowed to take this journey one gentle step at a time. When you're ready, we'll continue. You are not broken. It may feel that way sometimes. When you look around and see other people moving forward, making decisions, building lives that seem certain and complete, it's easy to turn inward and wonder what went wrong with you. It's easy to believe that if you were stronger, smarter, or more disciplined, you wouldn't feel this confused. But that belief is not the truth. Feeling lost is not a failure. It is not a flaw in your character. It is not evidence that you've wasted your time or missed your chance. Feeling lost is something that happens to people who care deeply about their lives. It happens to people who are trying to grow, to change, to understand who they really are beneath expectations and routines. Some of the strongest people you admire have felt exactly the way you feel now. People who appear confident, successful, and certain often went through long periods of doubt that no one saw. They questioned their direction. They felt unsure of themselves. They wondered if they were falling behind. The difference is not that they never felt lost. It's that they kept going while feeling lost. You don't hear these parts of the story very often. Society celebrates clarity, achievement, and forward motion, but it rarely talks about the quiet moments of confusion that come before them. It rarely shows the uncertainty that shapes people into who they become. So when you find yourself in that uncertain space, it can feel like you're the only one standing still while everyone else moves ahead. But you are not alone. You are not behind. Life is not a race with a single timeline that everyone must follow. There is no universal schedule for figuring things out. Some people find direction early. Others find it later. Some people change paths many times. None of these journeys are wrong. Your worth is not tied to how clear your goals are. It is not measured by how productive you've been lately. It is not determined by how much you've accomplished compared to others. You are valuable even in moments where you feel unsure, unmotivated, or stuck. You do not need to earn your right to exist by constantly improving yourself. You do not need to justify your worth by always having a plan. You are allowed to be human, and being human includes moments of confusion, rest, and doubt. If you've been judging yourself harshly, take a moment to notice that. Notice how heavy it feels to carry constant self-criticism. Notice how exhausting it is to believe that something is wrong with you. That voice inside your head that tells you you're failing, it is not wisdom. It is pressure, and you don't have to keep listening to it. You can acknowledge where you are without turning it into a verdict about who you are. You can say, I feel lost right now, without adding, and therefore I am broken. One statement is honest. The other is harmful. It's important to understand this. Clarity does not come from self-punishment. Growth does not come from shame. No one has ever built a meaningful life by constantly tearing themselves apart. Healing and direction come from compassion, from patience, from allowing yourself to move forward imperfectly, slowly, and without all the answers. If you've been comparing your life to others, gently remind yourself that you are only seeing fragments of their story. You don't see their doubts, their fears, or the nights they questioned themselves. You are measuring your inner world against someone else's outer highlight reel, and that comparison will never be fair. You are not broken for needing time. You are not broken for feeling tired. You are not broken for questioning your path. These are signs that something inside you is paying attention, searching for meaning rather than settling for what doesn't feel right. There is strength in that, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. Right now, you might feel like you should be further along, like you should have figured something out by now. But should is a heavy word, and it often carries expectations that were never truly yours to begin with. Try to loosen your grip on those expectations, even just a little. Let yourself exist without constantly measuring where you are against, where you think you're supposed to be. You are not broken. You are in a process of becoming, a process of learning, a process of shedding old versions of yourself that no longer fit. And processes are messy. They don't follow straight lines. They include pauses, setbacks, and moments of uncertainty. But they are not failures. They are signs that something is changing. Even now, even in this moment, you are enough. Not because of what you've done or what you plan to do, but because you exist. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to justify your pace. You don't need to apologize for being where you are. Let this be a reminder you can return to whenever self-doubt rises again. When that voice tells you you're broken, remember this: you are not broken. You are human, and you are allowed to take your time. Stay here for a moment. Let these words settle, and when you're ready, we'll continue. Feeling lost doesn't happen for no reason. It doesn't appear out of nowhere, and it doesn't mean something has gone wrong inside you. Most of the time, feeling lost is a response, a quiet signal that something in your life is changing, shifting, or asking for your attention. One of the most common reasons people feel lost is transition. Life moves in phases, even when we don't consciously notice them. You move from one stage to another, finishing school, starting or leaving a job, changing relationships, relocating, growing older, taking on new responsibilities, or letting go of old identities. Transitions can be loud and obvious, or subtle and internal. But either way, they disrupt what used to feel familiar. When something familiar ends or begins to loosen, the mind often searches for stability. It asks, who am I now? What comes next? What am I supposed to be doing? And when there are no clear answers yet, uncertainty fills the space. That uncertainty can feel like being lost, even when you're actually in between versions of your life. Alongside transition, there is pressure. Internal pressure that builds quietly over time. Pressure to be progressing. Pressure to be certain. Pressure to be doing something meaningful with your time. Even when no one is directly demanding these things from you, the expectations can live inside your head, repeating themselves again and again. You might feel pressure to meet an invisible deadline, to be successful by a certain age, to have clarity by now, to know exactly who you are and where you're going. And when your inner world doesn't match those expectations, self-doubt starts to grow. This pressure doesn't mean you're failing. It means you care. It means you want your life to matter. But when pressure goes unchecked, it can turn curiosity into anxiety and exploration into self-criticism. Another powerful reason people feel lost is comparison. Comparison has a way of quietly reshaping how you see your own life. You look at others, their achievements, their confidence, their direction, and begin to measure yourself against what you see. Slowly, almost without noticing, your own journey starts to feel smaller, slower, or less valid. But comparison rarely shows the full truth. You see outcomes, not the uncertainty that came before them. You see decisions, not the doubt behind them. You see progress, not the confusion that shaped it. When you compare your internal struggles to someone else's external image, it creates a distorted picture, one where you always come up short. Expectations often grow out of comparison. Expectations about how your life should look, about what success should feel like, about what a good path is supposed to be. Over time, these expectations can pull you away from your own inner signals. You stop asking what feels right for you and start asking what looks right to others. And when you live too long disconnected from your own values, confusion naturally follows. Feeling lost can also happen when you've outgrown something, a role, a goal, a version of yourself, but haven't yet discovered what comes next. Growth doesn't always feel expansive or exciting. Often, it feels disorienting. Old motivations stop working. Things that used to drive you no longer bring meaning. And before new clarity arrives, there is usually a period of emptiness. That emptiness can be uncomfortable. It can feel like stagnation or failure. But in many cases, it's a necessary pause, a clearing space, a moment where old patterns dissolve to make room for something more aligned. Growth is often disguised as confusion. When you're growing, you question more. You tolerate less that doesn't feel right. You become more aware of misalignment. And awareness, before it turns into clarity, can feel unsettling. It can make you feel like you've lost your footing, even though you're actually becoming more honest with yourself. It's also important to acknowledge exhaustion. Emotional and mental fatigue can make everything feel unclear. When you're tired, your mind struggles to see direction. When you're overwhelmed, even simple decisions feel heavy. Feeling lost is sometimes less about your life path and more about needing rest. You are not meant to have everything figured out while you're depleted. If you've been carrying responsibilities, expectations, or emotional weight for a long time, confusion can be your system asking for relief. Not answers, relief. There is nothing wrong with you for feeling this way. There is logic in your confusion, even if you can't fully explain it yet. Your feelings are responding to real experiences, real pressures, and real changes. Understanding this matters because when you stop seeing feeling lost as a personal flaw, you can start responding to it with curiosity instead of fear. You can ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Instead of what's wrong with me. You don't need to analyze every detail of your life to understand this moment. You don't need to dissect every choice you've made. Sometimes, understanding simply means allowing yourself to see that this phase has context, that it didn't appear randomly, that it makes sense. Feeling lost doesn't mean you're off track. It often means you're between chapters. It means old maps no longer apply and new ones haven't formed yet. And while that space can feel uncomfortable, it's also where possibility lives. Right now, you may not see where this path is leading. You may not feel grounded or certain, but uncertainty does not mean stagnation. Beneath the surface, things are shifting. Perspectives are changing. Awareness is growing. You are not standing still. You are transitioning. Let that understanding soften the way you speak to yourself. Let it reduce the urgency to fix everything immediately. Let it remind you that confusion is not the opposite of growth. It is often a part of it. Take a moment to let that sink in. You don't need to rush forward. You don't need to force clarity. You are allowed to be here in this in-between space without judging yourself for it. And when you're ready, we'll continue forward together. You don't need all the answers, even if it feels like you should. Even if your mind keeps insisting that once everything is figured out, you'll finally be able to relax, to move forward without fear, to feel like you're doing life the right way. That belief creates urgency, a quiet pressure that sits in the background of your thoughts, reminding you that time is passing and decisions are waiting. Over time, that pressure can become exhausting. The truth is, no one moves through life with complete certainty. Not the people you admire, not the people who seem confident, not the people whose lives look stable and well planned from the outside. Certainty is not a permanent state. It's a moment, and it usually comes after action, not before it. Many people wait for clarity before they move. They wait to feel ready. They wait for doubt to disappear. They wait until fear feels manageable. But waiting for those things can keep you stuck longer than you need to be. Life rarely hands you a clear map and says, "Now go." More often, it asks you to take a step in the fog and trust that the path will reveal itself gradually. Big plans can feel reassuring. They give your mind something to hold on to. They make you feel like you're in control. But big plans can also create pressure. They can make you feel like every decision must be perfect because it's somehow shaping your entire future. When the future feels that heavy, it's no wonder movement feels difficult. Small steps change that. Small steps are gentle. They don't demand certainty or confidence. They only ask for honesty. They ask you to notice what feels slightly better than staying where you are and to move in that direction, even if you do know why it feels right yet. You don't need to know where a step will lead to take it. You don't need guarantees. You don't need to see the end of the journey. You only need to sense that remaining completely still no longer feels right. There is progress that looks quiet and ordinary. Progress that doesn't come with applause or recognition. Progress that happens internally before it ever shows up on the outside. It looks like learning what doesn't work. It looks like letting go of old expectations. It looks like changing your mind. It looks like resting when you're tired instead of pushing yourself further. All of that is progress. even if it doesn't feel like it. You are allowed to pause. This is something worth repeating. You are allowed to stop and breathe without labeling it as failure. You are allowed to rest without turning it into a setback. In a world that constantly equates speed with success, pausing can feel uncomfortable. But pausing is often where clarity begins. When you slow down, you create space. Space to feel. Space to think. Space to notice what you've been ignoring because you were too busy trying to keep up. And in that space, your own voice becomes easier to hear. You don't owe anyone a perfectly defined path. You don't owe the world immediate progress. You don't owe explanations for where you are in life. Your journey does not need to make sense to anyone else to be valid. Progress without certainty is still progress. You may feel unsure. You may feel unmotivated. You may feel afraid of making the wrong choice. But the idea of a single right choice is often an illusion. Most choices are not final. Most paths can be adjusted. Most mistakes can be learned from. Growth is rarely about getting everything right the first time. You are allowed to be a beginner. You are allowed to try something and realize it's not for you. You are allowed to change direction without seeing it as a failure. Nothing is ruined by exploration. Nothing is wasted by learning more about yourself. If you've been putting pressure on yourself to have everything figured out, consider what it would feel like to release that demand, even slightly, to replace it with a gentler question. Not, what should I do with my entire life? But what is one small thing I can do today that feels kind, honest, or supportive to where I am right now? That small thing might be resting. It might be reaching out to someone you trust. It might be learning something new. It might be taking a break from decisions altogether. All of those are enough. You don't need a perfect plan to take one step. You don't need confidence to begin. You don't need certainty to move forward. You only need willingness, a willingness to meet yourself where you are, without judgment, and to move gently from there. Life is not solved in a single moment of clarity. It unfolds slowly, through trial and error, through pauses and restarts, through moments of doubt, followed by quiet understanding. You are allowed to be inside that unfolding without rushing yourself through it. If things feel unclear right now, let that be okay. Let it be temporary. Let it be part of the process rather than a problem you need to fix. You don't need all the answers today. You don't need to have everything figured out tonight. You only need to keep listening, one small step at a time. Take a breath. Let go of the urgency just a little. When you're ready, we'll continue. Reconnecting with yourself is not something you force. It's not something you achieve by thinking harder or pushing more. It happens quietly, slowly, when you begin to turn your attention inward instead of constantly reaching outward for direction. When life feels confusing, it's natural to look outside yourself for answers, to ask other people what you should do, to measure your choices against expectations, trends, or definitions of success that were never truly yours. Over time, that outward focus can pull you away from your own inner voice, the part of you that knows what feels right, even if it can't always explain why. That inner voice is still there. It hasn't disappeared. It hasn't failed you. It's simply been drowned out by noise. The noise comes from many places, from comparison, from advice that doesn't quite fit, from pressure to perform, to achieve, to prove something, from constant input, opinions, timelines, standards, and expectations. When you're surrounded by that noise for too long, it becomes hard to hear yourself think, let alone feel what's true for you. Reconnecting with yourself begins with creating space. Not dramatic change, not isolation, just space. Space to notice what you feel when no one is watching. Space to notice what drains you and what gently restores you. Space to notice when something feels heavy versus when it feels light. You don't have to label these feelings right away. You don't have to turn them into decisions. Simply noticing is enough. Your inner voice doesn't usually speak loudly. It doesn't shout or demand attention. It shows up as quiet signals, a sense of ease, a sense of resistance, a feeling of curiosity, a feeling of tension. These signals are easy to ignore when you're rushing or constantly distracted, but they become clearer when you slow down. Slowing down is an act of self-respect. It's a way of saying that your inner experience matters, even if it doesn't produce immediate results. When you allow yourself to move at a gentler pace, you begin to hear what you've been pushing aside. Letting go of outside noise doesn't mean rejecting the world or other people's opinions completely. It means learning how to filter them. It means recognizing that not every voice deserves equal weight in your life. Some voices speak from fear, some from projection, some from paths that don't belong to you. You are allowed to step back from what overwhelms you. You are allowed to take breaks from constant input. You are allowed to stop explaining yourself. Reconnection often happens when you give yourself permission to be less available to everything that pulls you away from your center. As you reconnect with yourself, you may notice that what feels right now is different from what felt right before. That's okay. Growth changes you. Awareness changes you. You don't have to cling to old goals or identities just because they once made sense. Rediscovering what feels right is not about finding one perfect answer. It's about noticing alignment in small moments. It's about recognizing when something feels honest, even if it's uncertain. It's about allowing yourself to choose based on resonance rather than obligation. You might feel drawn to rest. You might feel drawn to learning. You might feel drawn to creativity, to simplicity, to connection, or to solitude. None of these impulses are wrong. They are information. They are your inner world communicating with you. Trusting yourself again doesn't happen all at once. It builds slowly through listening and responding with kindness. When you honor small inner signals, you strengthen that connection. When you ignore them repeatedly, the connection grows quieter, but it never disappears. Reconnecting with yourself also means letting go of the idea that you need to be someone else to be worthy. You don't need to become more impressive, more certain, or more put together to deserve your own trust. You are allowed to meet yourself as you are. There may be moments of discomfort in this process. When you turn inward, you may notice feelings you've been avoiding: doubt, grief, longing. These feelings are not obstacles. They are part of understanding yourself more fully. And understanding always comes before clarity. You don't need to rush this process. There is no deadline for self-connection. There is no right way to do it. It unfolds naturally when you allow yourself to be present and honest. Right now, simply listening is enough. Simply noticing is enough. Simply allowing yourself to feel what you feel without judging it is enough. You are not trying to become someone new. You are remembering who you are beneath the noise. Stay here for a moment. Let your attention rest inside. Let the world quiet just enough for you to hear yourself again. And when you're ready, we'll continue. This moment you are in right now, however confusing or heavy it may feel, will not last forever. Life moves in waves, in cycles, in seasons. What feels overwhelming today will soften with time. What feels unclear today will become clearer when you least expect it. The uncertainty you are carrying is temporary, and this phase, as uncomfortable as it may be, is just one chapter of a much larger story, a story that is still unfolding. You are allowed to feel what you feel. You are allowed to sit in discomfort. You are allowed to take pauses, even long ones, without guilt. And you are allowed to return to this audio anytime you need to. Whenever doubt rises, whenever the world feels too heavy, or whenever your mind pulls you toward anxiety and overthinking, you can come back here. You can come back to this calm, to these words, to this reminder that you are enough exactly as you are in this moment. It can be tempting to believe that every step you take must be decisive, that every action must be perfect, that every choice must lead somewhere meaningful immediately. But the truth is, life does not work that way. Progress is often slow, invisible, and nonlinear. Growth is rarely a straight line. Sometimes it looks like pausing. Sometimes it looks like stepping backward. And sometimes it looks like doing nothing at all. Yet all of these moments are part of the same journey, your journey. Trust in yourself. Trust in the process. Trust that even when you feel lost, even when clarity seems impossible, you are moving forward in subtle ways. Every thought, every pause, every breath you take is part of the process of becoming. Even when it doesn't feel like progress, even when nothing seems to be happening, your inner world is rearranging itself, learning, adjusting, and growing in ways that will become visible over time. Life is not a problem to solve, but a journey to experience. And your journey does not require certainty at every step. You are allowed to explore, to stumble, to rest, and to rise again. You are allowed to trust that the answers will arrive when the time is right. And in the meantime, you can find peace in simply moving through life with curiosity, openness, and gentleness toward yourself. Take a moment to acknowledge how far you have come already. Even in the moments of confusion, you have been moving. Even in moments of doubt, you have been learning. Even in moments when it felt like you were standing still, your life has been unfolding quietly, steadily, gently. You have survived uncertainty. You have felt deeply. You have endured, and you are here now. That is proof of your resilience, even if it doesn't feel remarkable. It's important to remember that you do not need to carry the weight of the future on your shoulders today. You do not need to solve everything or decide everything right now. Some things will reveal themselves only with time, with patience, with experience. The journey ahead does not need to be fully visible for you to keep moving. All you need is to take the next small step, and then the next one, trusting that the path will become clearer as you go. Let these words serve as a reminder. Uncertainty is not a failure. Pause is not a weakness. And seeking guidance, whether from within yourself or from moments like this one, is not a sign that you are lost forever. These are signs that you are human. These are signs that you are learning. These are signs that your life is unfolding as it should, even when it doesn't feel like it. Whenever fear or doubt returns, whenever you feel the familiar tension of uncertainty creeping in, remember that you are allowed to come back here, to this calm, to this voice, to these words. You are allowed to take refuge in them, to let them remind you that nothing is permanent and that everything you are feeling will eventually shift. You are allowed to rest in the knowledge that the journey itself, not just the destination, carries meaning. You do not need to hurry. You do not need to force clarity. You do not need to rush yourself to a conclusion that is not yet ready to emerge. Life is patient with those who are patient with themselves. Your journey will unfold in its own time, and each moment, even the difficult ones, will teach you something important. Each moment will guide you toward a deeper understanding of yourself, of your values, and of what truly matters to you. Take one more deep breath. Let it fill your body. Let it remind you that you are alive, that you are moving forward, and that you are capable of meeting each new day with grace, even when the way feels uncertain. Feel the weight of tension leaving your shoulders. Feel the quiet strength that has always been there inside you. Know that you can continue on this path at your own pace, trusting that your journey is unfolding exactly as it needs to. You are not alone. You are not failing. You are enough. And you are allowed to move forward gently, step by step, with patience, with trust, and with hope. Whenever you are ready, you can continue walking your path. And whenever you need reassurance, this place, this moment, and these words will be waiting for you. You are allowed to return, to breathe, to trust. Your journey is yours, unfolding beautifully in its own time. And with every step, you are exactly where you need to be.